the listening silence. The night skies above the Atacama Desert had always been alive with secrets. To most, they were simply stars, cold, indifferent fires scattered across infinity. But to scientists at the Cerro Atacama Deep Space Array, they were pages of a vast cosmic book waiting to be read. It was close to midnight when Dr. Elena Varga leaned over a terminal and frowned. At first, she thought it was just a system error, background noise, perhaps interference from a satellite drifting overhead. But then the anomaly repeated, and repeated again. Not random, not static. It was rhythm. Her assistant, Rajesh, noticed her expression. "Something wrong with the receiver?" he asked, sipping cold coffee. "No," Elena whispered. Her hand hovered over the console, as though afraid to disturb the fragile sound spilling through the speakers. It was faint, buried beneath the natural hum of the universe, but was there, a rise and fall, a deliberate structure. Rajesh tilted his head. "That sounds like music." It did. Not like any human genre exactly, but closer to a dirge, a mournful chant played on an instrument that had never existed. The frequencies followed patterns, ascending, lingering, resolving not in harmony but in sorrow. Elena's pulse quickened. For decades, radio telescopes had picked up signals mistaken for intelligence. Pulsars, quasars, interference. But this moved. It breathed. She pressed the intercom. "Get me the director. Now." The signal. Within hours. The control room filled with specialists, linguists, astrophysicists, cryptographers. The signal pulsed across the speakers, looping every 43 minutes. Analysts ran Fourier transforms, mapping its peaks and valleys. Musicians began humming along, astonished at its coherence. "It's not language," one linguist muttered, shaking his head. "At least not in the way we think. Too structured for random noise, too fluid for code." "It's composition," Elena said firmly. "This is music." Debate erupted. Was it truly intelligent? Could an alien civilization even conceive music the way humans did? Or was humanity simply projecting meaning where there was none? The director finally silenced the room. "Run the probability models. If it's artificial, we'll know." The results came back the next morning. The odds of natural origin were less than 1 in 10 trillion. It wasn't chance. Someone out there was singing. The world holds its breath. News leaked. First to small scientific circles, then to the media, then to everyone. Headlines screamed across every language. "We are not alone." Alien song heard in the void. First contact or cosmic siren. Governments scrambled to seize control of the narrative. Some called for secrecy, others for openness. Religious leaders took to pulpits, some claiming proof of the divine, others warning of demons among the stars. But beyond fear and speculation, the signal itself captured humanity's imagination. It was eerie, beautiful, sorrowful. Musicians uploaded remixes. Orchestras attempted to recreate it. A choir in Vienna performed it live. Thousands wept without knowing why. For the first time in history, the entire planet listened to the same song. The reply: in New York, the United Nations convened an emergency assembly. Should humanity answer? Some feared the risk. What if broadcasting Earth's position invited destruction? But silence felt cowardly. After weeks of argument, a compromise was reached. Humanity would send a reply. Not words, too limited. Not mathematics, too cold. But something universal. Music. A global committee formed, not of generals or politicians, but of artists, composers from every culture, ethnomusicologists, sound engineers. Their task, to capture Earth's voice. The composition grew like wildfire, stitched together from fragments of humanity's soul. A Yoruba drumbeat, a Bach fugue, a Navajo chant, Mongolian throat singing layered with Japanese koto. The improvisation of jazz, the pulse of EDM, the haunting strings of Arabic makam. The piece had no single name, but the people called it the Symphony of Earth. When it was ready, a signal array in Chile and its sister dishes in Australia beamed it into the heavens, riding the same frequencies as the alien lament. The transmission stretched across light years, a fragile thread between civilizations. For 3 nights afterward, nothing came. On the 4th, the alien signal changed. The shift, gone was a repeating lament. Instead, the tones bent, fractured, reshaped. Analysts stared as graphs unfolded across the screens. The aliens were replying. Their music grew layered, almost agitated, like an orchestra trying to imitate a new instrument. "They heard us," Rajesh whispered, awestruck. "They're responding to our song." But the beauty was not without unease. The alien reply had an edge to it, a rising dissonance. Their minor chords clashed with humanity's harmonies, as though Earth's melody had disturbed something buried deep within them. When the reply ended, silence followed. Not minutes, not hours, days. The world waited. Had humanity offended them? Had the song been too raw, too human? Then, on a quiet morning in June, the silence shattered. Satellites caught it first, an object materializing at the edge of Earth orbit, dark, immense, shaped like no craft humanity had ever built. Not a probe, not a beacon. A ship. The Kherath had arrived. Dissonance. The ship appeared without warning. It did not blaze with fire or thunder like the arrival scenes of old science fiction. There was no flash of light, no roar of engines. It simply was a leviathan of obsidian steel sliding into orbit, casting its shadow across the blue arc of Earth. Through telescopes, its form seemed unsettlingly asymmetrical, as if sculpted by hands that had never known straight lines. A vast hull, ridged like the shell of some ancient sea creature, curved around crystalline protrusions that shimmered faintly in the sun. No lights, no windows, nothing to suggest habitation. Yet humanity knew, instinctively, that something was inside. Fear spread faster than awe. The world reacts. In Washington, generals argued for nuclear readiness. In Moscow, warheads were quietly rearmed. In Beijing, command bunkers filled with whispers of invasion. But the ship made no aggressive move. No weapons revealed themselves, no signals jammed. It only sang. At first, scientists thought it was electromagnetic interference. But soon, satellites detected an unmistakable pattern. The ship emitted vibrations, low and resonant, humming across the radio spectrum. Not words, not code, music. It wasn't the same mournful song from before. This was sharper, fractured, discordant, like a choir trying to sing through grief. The United Nations hastily assembled a response team. Soldiers guarded the skies, but the true war was to be fought not with weapons, but with understanding. A delegation of linguists, physicists, mathematicians, and musicians was flown to Geneva, where the alien resonance was streamed in real time. Among them was Dr. Leila Moreno, an ethnomusicologist from Madrid whose work studied how music carried culture through memory. Unlike the generals who sat grim-faced or the linguists who scribbled futile phonetic guesses, Leila listened with closed eyes. "This isn't language," she said softly. "At least not as we define it. They're not speaking. They're composing. Every phrase is a chord. Every chord is a thought." The room fell silent. First contact. 3 days later, the Kherath envoy descended. The ship's hull split open along hidden seams, releasing a glider-like craft that slipped through the atmosphere without flame. It landed not in Washington or Beijing, but on the neutral plains outside Geneva, where thousands of soldiers stood tense, fingers trembling on triggers. The craft unfolded like petals of black glass, revealing a single figure. It was taller than a human, though hunched, its limbs long and jointed in strange places. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, glowing faintly as though lit from within. Where a human heart might beat, a crystalline organ jutted outward, pulsing with shifting color. When it moved, that organ vibrated, releasing tones instead of words, tones that resonated through chest cavities and bone marrow. The first sound it gave was not greeting, but a mournful, 3-note chord that reverberated across the plain, a song of arrival. No translator could parse it. Linguists fed the tones into algorithms, but meaning eluded them. Only when Leila stepped forward did something shift. She held a violin, an old one she had carried since childhood. Without asking permission, she raised it to her chin and answered. 3 notes matched perfectly. The alien stilled. its crystalline organ pulsed brighter. Then it replied, adding 2 more notes, resolving her phrase. A call and response. A dialogue. The first conversation between Earth and the stars was not spoken. It was played. The Kherath. Over weeks, contact deepened. The envoy revealed its species name. The Kherath, though the word was a translation of a tonal signature. They had wandered the galaxy for millennia, drifting from system to system, bearing their great ship like a floating cathedral. The Kherath were not conquerors. They had seen empires rise and burn. What remained of them was a people bound by tradition, carrying forward their only treasure, music. Entire generations were raised on songs that preserved history better than words. But somewhere in the long journey, their art had withered. We sang the stars empty, their envoy told them. The tones translated slowly into human speech. Our music repeats. Our voices crack. We are a choir with no soul. And yet Earth's signal had struck them like lightning. Humanity's music was wild. Where theirs was ordered, human sound was chaotic, emotional, reckless. The mix of drum beats, chants, electronic pulses, and orchestral layers was unlike anything they had ever known. It terrified them. It fascinated them. You sing with fire, the envoy declared. Fire that warms, fire that burns. We come to listen. We come to learn. Fear and fascination. Not everyone was comforted. In parliaments and senate halls, leaders whispered of danger. If music was their language, what if Earth's songs became weapons? What if the Kherath sought not friendship, but assimilation, absorbing humanity's art until nothing remained? Churches declared the Kherath demons. Militaries drew up strategies. Yet amidst fear, something else spread across the globe. Curiosity. Children began humming the alien chords in schoolyards. DJs mixed human bass lines with Kherath frequencies, creating strange, hypnotic tracks that flooded the internet. Street musicians played duets with recordings of the envoy. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't just looking at aliens with suspicion. It was jamming with them. But beneath it all was unease. Because the alien melodies, beautiful as they were, always circled back to the same theme: loss. Every song carried sorrow, as though the Kherath themselves were graves given voice. The warning. One night, after a long session of tonal exchange, Layla set her violin down. She had grown accustomed to the envoy's presence, though its silhouette still haunted her dreams. "Why us?" she asked. "Why come to Earth?" The Kherath's crystal pulsed softly. Its reply was slower than usual, hesitant. "You sing pain, yet you survive it." Layla frowned. "Pain." The envoy resonated a minor chord so deep it made her bones ache. The translation device crackled. "Our songs broke us. We remembered too much. We drowned in echoes. We came to find those who could bear sorrow and still sing." It paused, then added a final, harsher phrase. "Your symphony is dangerous, too powerful. Do not play what cannot be contained." The words chilled her, but before she could ask what they meant, the envoy turned away, its crystal dimming. Dissonance. Back in orbit, the great Kherath ship began to hum louder, broadcasting across frequencies beyond human hearing. Observatories reported resonance waves shaking the ionosphere. The melodies were no longer mournful. They were agitated, fractured, as though Earth's music had awakened something long buried. Scientists warned of interference with satellites. Musicians whispered that the Kherath tones sounded like grief spiraling into rage. Humanity had given the galaxy its song, and the galaxy was singing back, but not in harmony. The minor key. The world had never prepared for war with music. And yet, when the Kherath ship hung silent in orbit, when its resonant song shook satellites and rattled oceans, humanity understood that the next step was not weapons, not diplomacy, but performance. The United Nations declared it the first concert of Earth, the gathering of sounds. In Geneva, where the Kherath envoy had first ascended, a massive stage rose on the shores of Lake Geneva, an open-air coliseum draped with flags, light arrays, and banks of speakers wired into orbital relays. The plan was daring. Earth would perform for the Kherath, not as nations, but as one species. Delegates arrived not with briefcases, but with instruments. An orchestra of cultures assembled. Japanese koto players beside Nigerian drummers, flamenco guitarists tuning alongside Inuit throat singers, a gospel choir rehearsing beside Mongolian horsehead fiddlers. Synthesizers hummed, bagpipes wailed, saxophones groaned. It was chaotic, dazzling, alive. Dr. Leila Moreno stood at the center, violin in hand, not as conductor, but as bridge. She had spent weeks with the envoy, piecing together the fragments of alien tones that could harmonize with human instruments. Yet the risk was immense. No one knew how the Kherath would react to the full force of Earth song. Their melodies are fragile, she told the orchestra. We must weave around them carefully, give them space. But even she could not predict what would happen when human sorrow joined the stage. The concert begins. Night fell. Billions watched on screens across the world, breath held. Above them, the Kherath ship glowed faintly, like a vast cathedral lantern in orbit. The envoy stood at the edge of the stage, crystal pulsing as though in nervous anticipation. Layla raised her bow. The first notes drifted into the night. Soft strings, a rising harmony that echoed the alien's opening chords. The envoy answered, its organ resonating in three-note phrases. The duet wove across the sky, tentative, delicate. Then the full orchestra joined. Drums thundered like heartbeat. Choirs soared, voices rising in dozens of languages. Electronic pulses layered with sitar. Trumpet with eru, a tapestry of Earth's soul unfurling in real time. The Kherath replied. Their tones fractured and reformed, struggling at first, then finding rhythm, as though the alien voice had been waiting centuries for another chorus to join it. For a moment, harmony bloomed across the plain. It was beautiful, too beautiful. The turn, the score, carefully designed, built toward a climax, a fusion of cultures into one thunderous melody. But deep within the arrangement lay a choice piece, a folk lament from Eastern Europe, chosen for its haunting minor key, a melody born of centuries of exile, hunger, and war. The violins carried it first, thin and mournful. Then the choir took it, voices breaking on notes that had carried grief for generations. The minor chords swelled, dark and aching, filling the air with the weight of humanity's suffering. The envoy froze. Its crystal flared blinding white. The tones it emitted warped, rising into jagged dissonance. Layla felt in her chest a vibration not of music but of memory, something raw and primal. Around her, musicians faltered, their instruments trembling in their hands. The choir staggered, clutching at their throats as alien harmonics rattled the air. Spectators screamed. Reporters dropped cameras. Above, the Kherath ship shuddered. Resonance waves rippled across the atmosphere, disrupting satellites, knocking out power grids. Northern skies erupted in auroras, green and violet flames dancing across the heavens. The minor key had awakened something buried within the Kherath. The fracture. Layla dropped her violin, hands over her ears. But the sound wasn't in the air, it was inside her head. Alien voices poured into her thoughts, a thousand-voice choir wailing with unbearable sorrow. Images flashed, burned worlds, shattered cities, entire species gone. The Kherath had not merely lost, they had witnessed extinction. Again and again, their songs were not art. They were prisons of memory. Every performance reopened the wound. And now human music, reckless, unbound, had torn the wound wide open. The envoy collapsed, its body convulsing as chords split into screams. Its crystal pulsed erratically, projecting shards of sound that cracked glass and ruptured eardrums. Soldiers rushed forward, but the resonance knocked them back like rag dolls. The orchestra broke apart. Drums silenced. Choirs fled. Only the alien wail remained, filling every space with grief too vast for language. The silence after. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the sound died. The envoy lay still, its crystal dimmed to a faint glow. Around it, the stage was ruined. Speakers blown, instruments shattered, lights hanging dead. Above, the great Kherath ship no longer sang. It loomed silent, dark, a cathedral empty to faith. For hours, fear ruled. Militaries braced for retaliation. Panic swept cities. Was this the beginning of invasion? Had humanity shattered the fragile bridge with its dangerous symphony? Layla sat amid the wreckage, shaking. She could still hear echoes of the alien choir in her bones. But beneath the terror, a realization burned. They had not attacked. They had broken. The Kherath were not angered by the minor key. They were consumed by it. Humanity had forced them to feel the grief they had buried for millennia. Aftermath. The envoy survived, barely. Its crystal flickered weakly as it was carried into a secure facility. For days, it emitted only faint tones, fragments of sorrow, half-phrases of songs long past. Doctors, linguists, soldiers, all tried to intervene. None succeeded. It was Layla who stayed by its side, violin in hand, though she dared not play. She simply sat listening. Sometimes she whispered words, though she knew the envoy could not understand. One night, as she dozed in her chair, the crystal pulsed. Faintly, like a dying ember, the envoy gave 3 notes, a broken chord. She answered softly, plucking strings with trembling fingers. The envoy replied, not strong, not steady, but alive. For the first time since the concert, hope stirred, the whispered warning. When the envoy regained enough strength to speak through its translator, its tones were fractured, trembling. You sang what we could not. You gave us grief. You gave us death again. Layla's throat tightened. We didn't mean to hurt you. We wanted to share. The envoy shuddered. No, not hurt. Remind. Your minor song is power. It opens what we sealed. It breaks silence. Dangerous. Dangerous. Its crystal dimmed again, as though the effort of speech drained it. Before it faded to sleep, it released one final, fragile chord. Do not play what cannot be contained. The warning lingered like thunder after lightning. The edge of tomorrow. Above Earth, the Kherath ship stirred once more. No songs this time, only silence. A silence too deep, too heavy, as if the galaxy itself held its breath. Humanity had performed its first concert for the stars. And in doing so, it had unearthed grief so vast it threatened to drown both species. The Symphony of Earth had begun, but its next movement was uncertain, whether harmony or catastrophe.